person like me who have started cybersecurity, I think long ago in 21 years back, right? For us, identity means levers and joiners, and then validations on a quarterly basis. And maybe some of the organizations still do the same. That's all his identity means. But today, identities are spanned from not just human but non-human, right? Because of the cloud, you have a lot of APIs to deal with, right? A lot of containerizations to deal with, and the systems need to log into other systems. Too many things happening, right? Because of which, more than the human identities, machine identities are getting more important. It's now called as non-human identities. So, with your experience in this cybersecurity world, can you give us a little more information of how this evolved from human identity to non-human identity?
Yeah, it's a great question, Satya. I think that's the thing I think we should start with, like to understand the history. But many times, like we forget our history, but it's always good to get back to our history, right? As you mentioned, like I also started my career. It's been 2 decades, more than 2 decades, right? Like when I started my career in 2000. So that's where, like, I think that's a time when 1999 is the time around that where within India, like people were started talking about cryptography, and we had a very few companies in the market at that point of time to even give a crypto algorithms, crypto libraries for us to start with the journey, right? Like that's how it started. But like when we started with that identity space, like people were like thinking like whether the digital certificate is going to replace the complete identity platform. But those days, even the systems were not ready for the transformation. So people were very happy with username and password, educating customers about a security aspect, like, hey, the private key is there, you have asymmetric cryptography, you can do an encryption, you can do this, you can do an very clear authentication, we can do a non-repudiation, and there are like a lot of things which we talk in terms of technology. But many people like, why do I need this, right? Like that was a kind of an approach for this problem statement whenever we have been into the customers, right? Like, but like when you see the way it got evolved, like there are so many other things came in authentication platform. We started with username, password, then came an OTP, like we were all getting an OTP, and there is also like a hardware based OTP, like where you have a secure ID kind of a token which you carry and you click on every time you get a number and you use to that punch into a system. There are a lot of some kind of a synchronization happening between this device and the applications and all those things. But over a period of time, it is also well understood that like this identity space is not just about a particular token or anything. It is way beyond that, right? Like so many humans, like many applications and so many things, you have to interact with many applications. So we need a multi-factor authentication, right? Like that's where we started talking about multi-factor authentication. In fact, we can see this as like more of a step-up authentication, right? Like you have one username, you have a password, you have a token, you do a OTP, you have a thing. But in all this journey, what happened in the human identity is like we talked about digital certificate and private key. But the most important problem that happened is like, how do I manage my private key? How do I keep it securely? Are we even ready for that kind of an changeover? Like just take from a normal human being, like, see, we come from a cybersecurity professional, just forget everything. You going and teaching your parents about like, hey, you have to log in into your banking site with a certificate, you have a crypto token, plug in, it is going to ask for a password. I don't think they are going to even understand. So the problem there is like how do you teach how this infrastructure is like how that the whole ecosystem works, like that was definitely a problem. But yeah, even before that problem, we solved that problem. We all got into a scenario around 2010s and all this, like where we started having a lot of application to application communication, machine to machine communication. And how am I going to authenticate with the systems? How do I going to authenticate with the application? It is not just a human authenticating to an application, like it is more than that, machine to machine, application to application. And the cloud started shaping up a lot. So many cloud vendors started coming in the market. Like once they came in, like that, like you have to start about how do these cloud environments it gets it is interactive, and so many things. How do I authenticate with my cloud systems? So this cloud also brought in something around, like we started talking about containers, we started talking about workloads and all these things, right? Like Now
APIs.
APIs and so many things started coming in. So what happened is like this identity space also has to change itself. I should say like it's like changing its colors, right? Like you have to change the colors
Correct.
in a very periodical basis. That identity space also really carried change over a period of
Correct.
time in last 2 decades. But one important thing we have to understand is like what has happened now, right? Like we all like it is like this, like when you start something new, we become more affect more curious about that, and then you get into that, and then we started proliferating too many models into the system today.
Yeah, yeah.
So there, like you take up like any security system and they talk about identity, we can talk about dozens of ways in which identities are managed today, either between a human to machine or between a machine to machine. Now we are in the space like where this everything is now become very very I should say it is like a magnified, it is very very big picture at this point of time. It really calls for something called as a non-human identity. Now this non-human identity, how is it going to be managed? Do I even have a visibility about this non-human identities within an organization? Do I know how many certificate is present?
Yeah, yeah.
Do I know how many keys are there? How many places I use API keys? How many places I use secrets? How many places I use tokens? How many places I use service account? How many places we use service principles? We don't have the clarity. And it has also so happened in any organization, it is also like it is a fragmented divisions, right?
Agree, agree.
Every division has to follow. A developer community, they are very close to a Jira system.
Correct.
An IT community, they might be very close to the DevOps or like the cloud systems. So you take a DevOps community, they are very much attached to the pipeline build
Their
problem,
GitHub.
GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, Azure DevOps pipeline. So they are into that community. You talk from the security team, they will be talking about Prisma Cloud, they will be talking about Rapid7 or all these kind of security application. Now, when you take as an organization, I have more than like 2 dozens or 3 dozens of applications sitting in to solve certain problem statements in them. Now, all these applications have some identity.
Right.
Now, even a single identity is compromised, what it
What
means
will
to the
happen?
organization, that is a threat which is going to really come into our picture. So I particularly see this like this identity space is grown for all good reasons, but now it is a time for all of us to think like whether these non-human identities are well managed. How do I go and manage it well? How do we bring the visibility? So that is something which I see that is something more to be addressed in coming days, Satya.
Very well said. So I go with this point what you mentioned in the end, right? So the visibility of this issues, when you have so many systems doing it, it's almost like 100 cooks are cooking just
Yeah.
one maybe omelette or one dosa. No, it looks so odd to see, but that's what is happening in the
Exactly.
organization. So if we see in a large bank, or just one transaction a customer is doing, there might be 100 different applications running in the background.
Very
And
true.
what is happening in that case, those 100 applications are interacting with each other through what service account, which is actually non-human account in
Exactly.
the words what you mentioned. So how these non-human accounts are authenticating it to the other application and authenticating itself, and how you make sure that that certificate is genuine or not, right? And when it comes to areas like as you mentioned in the cloud area, so then APIs, you have multiple APIs people are using, developers using multiple third parties for the code. All these are really complex nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So with that, I think it throws into a lot of challenges on how do you manage these many systems and identity. I'll just speak about one practical example in the current day world. So in my home, there are how many people? 6 people, right? But I have at least 25 different entities, human entity, non-human entities. You might wonder what are they, right? So each of us have iPhones or phones, whatever, Android, iPhone, whatever. Each of us have one phone at least, so 6 phones, yeah. And then 4 of us have laptops, another 4, 10. And then we have actually our tablets, 2 of us have, so 12, right? And we also have additionally some kind of a camera in the end, in the beginning. So like this, if you count each home, each person, each home, I mean, at least the urban home is concerned, we have 15 to 20 identities established for that particular address. See, I'm not speaking about business now. I'm speaking about a human, a person. Every human, it attached to different components. Even myself, I carry 2 phones, one for office, one for personal,
Yeah.
and then 1 laptop for office, one for personal, and then 1 tablet. So how many entities we are creating? How we are authenticating to it? How these are authenticating to other systems also matter. Audience, thank you very much for listening to us. We are going to come soon with our next episode soon. However, I hope this session is interesting for you, also given you enough information about quantum cryptography. If you want to know more, just reach out to us on support@csabangalorechapter.com. Keep watching this space. Signing off, Satya. Thank you.
Thank you.